Rachel or Latifa, could you guys turn on the sound in the room? We're not hearing anything on mine.
Give this off over to Carlos. If you didn't have a chance, there is a copy of the full printed program. Charlie, I think you have that in your car. So there's a resolution on there for you to sign once we get to that. So this perfect. All right.
Rachel, they can't hear online.
Here.
They can't hear it online.
We can hear it now. It was muted before, but we can hear it now.
That better?
Can you hear us at all?
Carlos, can you hear us?
I could hear you. Could you guys hear us?
No, it's coming through here.
It was muted before, but we can hear it now.
When I mute, they can't hear us.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Lindsay, I can hear you.
I can hear you too, Carlos.
Testing.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Yep.
People in the room, can you hear us? If you can.
Let's try that. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing,
We can hear
testing.
you.
Okay,
Hello.
we can hear you. There we go.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. So I guess we're on to TPWP. So this is our final work plan. Not much has changed in terms of our goals. We're still looking to implement our SS4A, looking at block talks, trail development, selection process to align with LRTP, and work with local community members to pursue discretionary funding. MAPA is currently seeking out funding for this round of SS4A, along with Pottawattamie for one of the projects. Very excited about that, and the City of Omaha. Next slide. This is just the final work product budget. The biggest change from the draft to here is the total federal award for regional transportation planning. Basically, one of the numbers was off. We updated it. Here's the update number. What we're looking at is a total award of $56,794 for the year, with a local match of $14,199 for a total work program of $70,993. This amounts to about 1,200 hours or so to do all the work that's required of us. Next slide. To date, we received no public comments on this, so thank you. We incorporated all the final TPWP comments from Iowa DOT and our partner agencies, and they're integrated in the narrative and the final tables. Next slide. This is just order of operations. In May, we approve our final TPWP, which is due to Iowa DOT by June 1st. This will set our program for the next fiscal year. During this time, we're also bringing up the draft tip, and more on that later today. Next slide. And so today we're asking for approval of the fiscal year 2027 Transportation Planning Work Program. Happy to take any questions or comments at this time.
Questions or comments?
All right. Hearing none, can we get a motion to approve the final 2027?
Do I have a motion from the policy committee to approve?
Need technical committee first, don't you?
Yes, I apologize. Technical first, then policy.
I didn't hear what she said.
Oh, we could get technical first.
Okay, well, it just said policy here on my agendas. Okay, now a motion from the technical committee. Make a motion. Got a motion, do I have a second? Second. A motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All same sign. Okay. Now a motion from the policy committee.
Crouch, so move.
Rasmussen, second.
Motion and a second. All in
John,
favor,
are
say aye.
Are you here in a policy? meeting?
Policy today.
I always
Buster.
have to double check.
I know, maybe you should have made that.
Alrighty.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Perfect.
Okay, draft fiscal year 27 transportation improvement program.
Alrighty, so as you guys might be aware, we've got a draft transportation improvement program. We do this every year. But first, before we get into kind of the meat of that, we're gonna go back and look at some of the project updates and selection work that we've been working on for the last few months. We've got a few projects that we've been handling a little bit differently, and also a lot of projects that we're going and putting through the relinquishment process. So we're kind of doing a clearinghouse of the tip right now to get old projects out that aren't being programmed so that we can make sure that that funding is being available for projects that are ready to move forward. All right, so first off, we've got the Pottawattamie Conservation TA set-aside project that we looked at last time. Since we looked at that last time, we've made some edits. We've worked with the project sponsor and with Iowa DOT folks. The original request was for $500,000. We're now looking at that for being $700,000. There's some context around the TAP program in that this is going to be the only project programmed within the TIP for the entire FY27 tip for the entire 4-5 years that we can program projects. And that's, sorry.
It's a real quick question. I know we had some discussions back and forth with DOT staff and RPA-18 staff. There was that piece that was between the City of Council Bluffs segment.
Yeah.
It was not associated with any other project. Did that now get included with this one?
So the really tiny piece, that was actually already covered by a different project. So that one's already going through a non-RPA funding source, and it's already, as far as I've been made aware, that's being constructed, and it was just that one small segment. The segment that overlaps with the MPO when it comes to the actual Weston to Underwood segment, we have that kind of in here under edit 2. Where we're looking to program that under 2 different projects within the tip. It'll be in the MPO tip in one project and in the RPA tip in the other project, and then they'll be connected. So they'll have the same TPMS ID, same name, same location descriptor. They'll just have different fundings. Part of this was they also received state TAP and state recreational trails funding. And so that is going to be kind of programmed primarily within the MPO project. That one's going to be essentially the lead for the 2 projects. And then we'll move forward with the award for the RPA, and that will only be applicable to the segment that's within the RPA. And we think that it's totally reasonable to expect that this will work with that split.
Okay. Is the state match, does that cover their match? I mean, can they use the state funds for their local?
They can use the SRT funds for the match, yes, but they can't use, you can't use TAP to match TAP. And they also have some other funding from the county that they've received. They've got, I think it's like 1.4 million or something like that, that they've already got from Pottawattamie County through 2 different funds they've got. And they also applied for, if you're familiar, the Rural Tribal Federal grant that opens up, and they did not receive that one. That one would have been another, I think, 1.5 million or so. They did not receive that one, but they are still more than covered. They have the entire, with this award, they would have the entire project cost covered.
Is there a trailhead in Weston? Or do you guys have a trailhead in this segment?
Segment?
No, not when it's on.
There are other segments of the trail that we're looking at funding right now as well. I'm working with the Trails Boards to see what we can do. If you guys are familiar with Brad, who works at MAPPA, he's on our ComDev side. He works a lot with the Pottawattamie County Trails Board, and they're working to get a lot of these unfunded but planned segments on the Great American Rail Trail completed here in the next few years. So they're making a lot of efforts to try and get that funding pushed through and see if we can get those segments funded and to fill those gaps. Any questions about this one? All right. And then I think we can go forward if everyone feels good about it. We'd like to request this motion.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve from the technical committee?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second from the technical committee? Second. A motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Any changes?
Okay, do we have a motion from the policy committee? Make a motion. We got a motion from Jarvis,
Rasmussen, second.
second by John. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Perfect. All right, our next project, for the call for amendments, as you might remember, we did a split call for projects for the TAP program, and then we did a call for amendments for the STBG program. We received this as the amendment request. It's the Harrison County our TPMS ID 39017. It's this HMA overlay, and they've made a couple edits. First off, we're adjusting what year it's going to be programmed in. It was originally programmed within FY27 back with original FY24 application, and that was for an award of 1.145 million. And then in the FY25 tipped, it got pushed further back out because we were trying to make sure we were in fiscal constraint, and we had a lot of projects programmed within 2028 at that time. Now with the amendment requests, it's to increase the STBG award to 3.4 million, push it back out one more year to kind of give it that extra buffer and to make room for, we also still have 2 projects currently programmed within 2028. And then the scope is being edited to include termini adjustments and some additional safety features, including upgraded guardrails and some slow pardoning and things like that. You can see on the map here, it's got the red section up here and this other red section up here. The project is essentially shifting slightly, but that entire green segment is also remaining within the project, and then we're just shifting it a little bit over. And that's to account for the fact that over this way, we've got a bridge, and so we're adjusting so that John can make his safety improvements and make sure that he's meeting where he needs to meet with grade.
That's a great explanation, a lot of confusing stuff. So the other part of this is we're kind of over programming our 5-year plan. So trying to fix that. I think a lot of what the applications have kind of pushed Harrison County to do was to make a higher match to score better. But then we ended up federalizing a whole bunch of projects that we don't need to federalize. We're trying to consolidate into one project. Yes, I wish it would have been one application, I guess, or maybe it should have been a reapplication, but there's a total of 4 projects. And the total RPA money for that was $3,879,000. So I think we're leaving $479 on the table after we consolidate the projects so that'll be available to be obligated if we can clean this up. But struggling with the over programming in the matches and just over programming in the whole county 5-year program. Kind of an ugly fix, sorry.
No, it's hard to come in from an engineer and be working with projects someone else programmed and designed, and everyone does it a little bit differently. So I know that can be a challenge.
Yeah, so the end adjustments on the top of the page there by Pisgah, our pavement section doesn't change until it hits that intersection. So we ended at a bridge, but we still had that little segment of overlay there. Then it changes to seal coat as you go west. So it really didn't make sense to have a little stub of old pavement in there. Then on the very bottom end on the east side there, trying to start on the east side of the bridge so I can redo the approaches and the guardrail on that, because I hate to have a good road with bad approaches on it. So that was the determining adjustment.
Any questions about that for John or me? All right. Then we would,
Okay, do we have a motion for the technical committee?
Before we get to the motion, was there, I moved it to 29, but 28 would work as well. I
right.
thought we had
So
fiscally constrained in 28 as well.
if it's preferred by the committee, we're going to be going over the rest of the program and looking at the programming sheet and kind of looking at, okay, where can we fit projects so that we're still within each individual year fiscal constraint? If that's preferred, we can do that before we vote on it and approve the year.
That works. It's kind of hard because we have to turn in our programming before this is done. So we just have to shoot in the dark on these applications. It's
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally understand that.
something and they can be amended, but
Yeah. Would the board rather go over the programming scenarios first? Okay, sounds good. We'll come back to this then.
Don't let us forget it.
What?
Don't let us forget it.
Yes.
it's on Chris there. He's
Okay.
trying to make sure he's in line.
So we'll skip over here. So we're getting more into kind of the work that we did to update the FY27 tip. One of the things that we were focusing on this year was cleaning out the tip of projects, like I mentioned earlier, that have been programmed for a really long time and just aren't getting programmed. We just keep rolling them over into the next fiscal year, and then they kind of just stagnate in there, and no one can use the funding because it's kind of just been kidnapped a little bit. So as part of that, we're going through, you might have been aware that we went out and we did our annual project status reports. These are the projects that Iowa DOT is authorizing and sponsoring. Most of these are going through on schedule. There's a couple that were kind of last minute, but there's only one that needs to be rolled over into FY27, and that's the NHPP funding, which is not something we administer, so that will not be something that we do any sort of decision making on, but it's informational. For the local projects, this is where it starts getting a little more complicated. I know there's a lot of information on there. I promise I'll go through it more individually with each of these communities and try and talk about these a little bit more. A couple of them that we'll want to point out later, I've kind of already pulled out and we'll take a closer look at. All right, and we're there. So a couple of things for, that's actually not quite accurate. We've got Pottawattamie County projects. Those are 2-year programming changes. Andy, if you want to speak to that a little bit, just to explain some of what you had talked to me about when programming those in different fiscal years.
Right now.
And it just can be super quick.
Yeah, very high level. So we're moving some G30 repavement from FY27 to FY29. We don't want that project to go on at the same time we're replacing a bridge in Underwood. So there's some project conflicts there. So we want to bump that a couple of years. And then we want to move up L34 repavement from FY29 to FY28. It's in need of replacement, and yeah, we want to get that done sooner.
And then Jacob's not here, but there's also Mills County project that he's making some adjustments to the local match budget just because of what's available on his end. So that's just what we'll be doing for 36974. There's also U.S. Fish and Wildlife project, which has been programmed for a really long time. That's a $500,000 award. We've been informed by the DOT that has been let, or they're treating it as it has been let, and that will be moving out of our current tip. On the more regional side, their Pottawattamie County was STBG, but these are projects that we're looking at as far as more of the relinquishment side and what we're doing to kind of clean out the tip. So we've got 2 Glenwood projects for TAP. Those are trails projects that we were initially looking at clearing, trying to push those through and see what we could adjusting the scope. They had some of the other awards that they received from the state as part of local match, and just with a lot of staff turnover and things like that, they just weren't able to push those projects through. But we're hoping that with relinquishing them, that we can reapply in the fall with updated scopes for a project that they can actually get shovel ready and get completed. So we're really excited about that. Those projects have also been programmed for a really long time. And so we think this will be a good chance to kind of start over with that project. There's also a pot conservation TAP project. We had one programmed, also that one was from 12 years ago for $200,000. And that was for a project that no one actually really knows what it was supposed to be anymore because it was so long ago, and the project description wasn't super helpful, and no one was even around, and we don't even have the application materials anymore that were submitted as part of that. As part of that conversation with the project sponsor, we determined that it would be better to just relinquish that award as well, and we can free up that $200,000 to go back into TAP. There's also these Harrison County STBG projects that John mentioned. There's the one that we're going to be, amending and rolling over, and 3 that we're relinquishing. So we can look at these more broken out by program. The total award, and John, I wanted to ask you about this, but I didn't know if you had seen my email yet, but I was adding that up and my number came out differently than yours. So I just want to confirm that we've got our math correct. For those 3 projects, it came out to $2,074,000, and I think yours was closer to $3 million. So I just want to make sure that we've got all of that straightened out before we get things programmed as well. Yes, so those are the 3 Harrison projects that are currently on deck to be relinquished. And then we've got these TAP projects, those 2 from Glenwood and the 1 from Pottawattamie Conservation, for a total of $385,000 that will be returning to the TAP program.
Math wasn't mathing.
I was wondering, I looked at the information you'd sent over yesterday as part of that informational request, and I was like, wait a minute, these numbers aren't working. So I just want to make sure that
Asking for 200,000 more instead of.
yeah, no, I mean, and that's a conversation that we should have as part before we push that motion through, for sure. But yes. All right, and we don't actually have to do that. So now we're going to go back into the programming spreadsheet. And we'll do TAP first, and then we'll head over to STBG. This is pretty simple. I know it looks messy. It's less scary than it looks, I promise. Essentially, this blue project up here is the new Pottawattamie Conservation Project. We've got that $700,000 in here instead of the original $500,000, and we've pushed that through, so that'll be programmed. That is the new project, and it's planned to be in FY27, and that's where I have it in the current tip draft. That is our only project plan because, as you can see, these projects are being relinquished. They're no longer planned within the program, and this is our final balance for each year. So this is what we have available. The $700,000 really fit really quite nicely within FY27. We just had that tiny bit of gap for it to fit, or we would have had to try and put it into a different fiscal year. So really glad that that worked out. They're really excited to get working on that project. Jeff wasn't able to be here this morning, but he sent a few supporters to just encourage that project, and they're ready to be shovels in the dirt. So that's the TASA program. We haven't really made a plan for what that's going to be looking like in the fall, but expecting a call for projects, and we'll see kind of how that shakes out. So if you're considering a TAP project in the future, I would definitely start thinking about that, start looking at what that might look like, and we'll keep those in mind as we move forward. STBG, this is where it gets a little more complicated, but we have a nice table so we can try out different scenarios, which is really handy. So currently I've got these three. These are the ones that are being relinquished or are planned to be relinquished. If we leave those in, this one was actually, was actually programmed within FY25. That one occurred and is still in FY25. It was never moved to FY26 or FY27 due to they were going through an engineering changeover at that time, and it was missed within the approval time frame. And so we weren't able to move that over into the FY26. We worked with Iowa DOT and John when he came on board to try and figure out that project, and ultimately it was decided that he was going to look at relinquishing it anyway. And so we didn't move forward with the amendment to include it into FY26. We've got this guy, which would have been in FY26 as well. Again, that one did not go through and has been requested to be relinquished. This is the other one. It's in FY27, so that if that were to be to remain within the program, we wouldn't really have to make any changes. It would just be a direct rollover. But if we undo those, as you can see, if we keep those projects in, we're out of fiscal constraint in 2029. That's no good. So we've got to figure something out here. And so that's kind of the solution right now and where we've got things programmed. Are there any requests to see things programmed in other years? You might notice I do also have Andy's programs, or I'm sorry, Andy's projects programmed within the requested years that he has in the draft tip and not what they were originally programmed for. Any questions?
Good bump, item 12 for the second, Pottawattamie one to FY30. That would free up a little bit in 2030.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're in fiscal constraints. So the thing is, like, if we leave it like it is this, we don't have a problem, right? So it's kind of just up to project sponsors and the committee as a whole on where we want things programmed and when you think you'll be ready to move projects forward. Ideally, we do try and keep projects in the near fiscal years so that if like a project runs into trouble for some reason and it has to be pushed out, then there's room for it to be, and because it's really hard to bring a project, to move a project from a farther year into a near year than it is to take it from a near year and put it into a further year. Just as a general rule of thumb. So I think this actually works really well, Andy. So I'm totally, my recommendation would be that this is a pretty good, like everything's in a pretty good spot where it is right now. We're going through and confirming some of these tables with Zach, who does the TPMS work, but everything's looking kosher so far. Any questions about that? All right. Go back over here. I don't remember that. We'll go through the rest of this and then we can do that final amendment. So just some background for those of you who haven't gone through a tip cycle before. We do this annually. It's required for all the MPOs, which MAPA also administers within the metro area, and the RPAs, which are the rural planning communities. We're listing all those capital and non-capital projects within the boundaries of the RPA. Note that the RPA boundary will be shifting soon. There is a part of Mills County that will soon be included within the MPO, and so we'll be adjusting all of our materials and all of the way we go and do some of our programming so that Mills will also be able to have access to some of that MPO funding now, just because part of their county is now included within or will be included within the MPO.
You know the balance of the MPO?
Yes, it's on the next slide.
Oh,
Oh, no, the MPO. I don't know that one, but I can ask and send it back out afterward. Court Barber, who most of you are probably familiar with, he administers that program. But we haven't discussed. There's not a whole lot of overlap between our programs. They also program theirs later than we do. John, he's probably done, he probably hasn't gotten everything prepped yet either. But I'll follow up with him. The
I'm just curious.
approval process is a few weeks behind ours. So. And then this is solely for the STBG and TASA programs on the MPO side. Currently, there is also the CRP program. I've heard rumors that that's probably going away here pretty soon. And it looks like reauthorization is looking at maybe more formula funding than the discretionary funding that was quite popular within IIJA. And then we want to make sure all of this is in alignment with our LRTP. We approved that last year. And we're looking at maybe adjusting some of our project selection processes just because they haven't been super effective, especially when we're not. For example, the STBG program is a ranking-based scoring system, and that's not super effective when you're only getting one application or two at a time. So in the interest of making sure we're being data-driven and we're looking at all of the information we have available, especially on the Iowa side where Iowa DOT is really good about making that available. We want to make sure we're including that and taking account all of that data when scoring and implementing and programming and planning our projects. All right. So as part of these updates, we've gone through and updated all the fiscal constraint tables. Essentially, that's what we looked at within the programming sheet. That's mostly what that is. And then gone through and updated all of the operations and maintenance tables as well as some of the language within the narrative. Currently within the entire FY27 TIP, we've got a bit over 8 million programmed, and that's within that amendment and rollover projects. And then 700,000 is that conservation project. The public comment period, if approved, will be open today through June 14th, 2026. That's for any member of the public to just look at what is being programmed, to look through the draft plan and get back to us with any comments. And then that's due to Iowa DOT. The draft is to June 15th, and we'll get that here in as soon as it's approved. And then the final tip is due in July. This is essentially what it looks like within the plan itself. We've got only the STBG programs. There's a lot of other projects that we'll take a look at here in a little second, very briefly. But these are the 5 STBG projects that we currently have programmed within the draft. And then, yes. And then this is that one TAP program. This is how it is currently programmed within the TAP TPS. All right, these are the fiscal constraint tables. These are essentially just a restatement of that programming sheet that we looked at, but this is the one that'll be in the actual plan. If you notice there's any changes that you would be preferred to make to that, you can see the balance of each year is on the bottom there. And so that's basically where we have flexibility to reprogram things and move things around. So if your project is over the amount that's in that balance, it probably won't fit unless you're swapping it with a different project that's already in that year or a previous year to free up that funding, essentially. TASA and STBG are a little bit different. TASA is essentially a subset of STBG. However, STBG is a little unique in the fact that we have to be fiscally constrained annually, whereas TASA, we can do it as long as we're fiscally constrained within the entire program that is considered acceptable. So that gives us a little bit more freedom. We do still try and maintain annual fiscal constraint with the TAP program, just because it's a little bit more responsible to make sure we know where everything's coming from, especially when apportionments are fluctuating and we're looking at a new transportation bill here in the next year or so. All right, these are the tables 3 and 4. That's looking at the non-federal aid revenues and operations and maintenance expenditures. that's mostly just a lot of what's going on in the background. So we won't look at that too much. This is table 5. This is basically a conglomeration of all of the projects that we were looking at before. There are, I believe, I think I counted, there were like 9 or 10 different programs that we currently have programmed within the FY27 TIP. You'll notice that one at the top, if I'm not mistaken, that one's the somewhat newly announced CHBP, which is essentially a program that they're working on updating rural bridges. Iowa, unfortunately, has some of the worst ranked bridges within the US. I think it's West Virginia, Iowa, and Missouri are top 3 or something like that. And so that program is working to try and address some of those gaps. The rest of those, most of those are pretty familiar. Andy's got a bunch, some in here as illustrative, which is the ILL. You'll see there, that's basically just like, they're not actually technically in there yet, but they're the projects he's essentially considering. So we do encourage that. If you're looking ahead, a lot of the times we're seeing especially on the federal end, these programs, they're having really short application periods. The SS4A program that is currently open was only 2 months. There's another program that is opened and it's only a month long. So that gives you 4 weeks to put together an entire application. Some of that requires a lot of extensive data, research. You're trying to get letters of support. If you already have your project planned and kind of put together and you just have to assemble it and go and try and get support for it, and you have all those materials kind of ready to go, and you're confident of what you want your project to look like and what you want it to accomplish, then we consider that to be a lot more competitive for some of these programs where it's really tight deadline. We want to make sure you guys are taking advantage of these discretionary funding and grant funding before they go away. Like I mentioned, this is our last year for the IIJA funding. We're not exactly sure how that's going to shake out yet, but we're looking at reauthorization right now. All right, so I'll go back here. There we go. Any questions before we move forward with a motion? Or objections? That is also allowed.
We have a motion.
I'd move to approve them.
Got a motion. Do I have a second? The technical committee.
He's technically policy today, so he's not allowed to go.
I will second that.
Second, Andy? All right.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Great.
Okay, do I have a motion from the policy committee?
So moved.
Motion from the policy committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
And then I will ask for the same, but this time it's to recommend approval of the TIP as a whole. So all of those projects that we looked at, we took a specific vote on John's project because technically it falls under the amendment process, and we want to make sure that the board was really aware of that before we just bundled it into the TIP.
Okay, any questions or comments? If not, do I have a motion from the technical committee?
So move.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried from the technical committee. Do I have a motion from the policy committee? And I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Rasmussen.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Lovely. All righty. So it's your favorite time of the year where we get to go and do officer elections. Yay. So essentially, we're going through and we're implementing those bylaws that we voted on back in March. Part of that means that we're moving to a biannual election cycle. That just happens to be this year. So next year, you won't have to do this again. Also, next year, you'll still be in whatever officer position you happen to be when you're elected this year. So I would just say, keep that in mind. one thing that I'll note, you assume responsibilities July 1st, and then that goes through June of 2027. Obviously, if, you know, something happens and you're not able to, for some reason, you can't stick around for the next 2 years, no worries. We'll essentially go back and we'll hold another vote and find a replacement. So no pressure. Please do run if you want to. Don't feel pressured by the 2 years. We'll figure it out if something happens. This is mostly just to take away from some of the administrative burden, and because honestly, a lot of y'all have been here for a while and it makes sense to just keep that simple. On behalf of Jacob, because he wasn't able to make it today, I've coordinated with him. He is willing to be nominated for vice chair, chair. He's currently our technical committee chair, and he's willing to continue in that role or in a vice chair role if that's desired. So you guys can nominate him in absentia and he'll be stuck with it. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's do it. I nominate Jake Farrell. Is that what we're gonna do?
You like Chris as well, right? Like you down, spell it, you want both of them?
And honestly, they could flip flop, like, you know, we could have Chris be vice.
Yeah.
Or you guys can just stay, or, you know, we can totally switch it up. We could do Andy and John or Jamie, or, you know, it's totally up to you guys. But yeah, so we've got some of the responsibilities before we get to the actual voting bit. For policy officers, we currently have Charlie and Susan. Basically, that just means you guys are presiding at the meetings, making sure that we're going through and doing all the voting as it needs to be voted on. You're communicating with the MAPA staff to make sure that any policy or agenda items that need to go through are getting onto the agenda and providing all of that notice. A lot of that ends up being delegation to MAPA staff for the administration portion of that. But essentially your main role is to be present and presiding at the policy board committees and to be supporting those conversations and be a representative. And then vice chair, you're helping the chair when they're not able to make it. Maybe they're out of town, maybe there's a medical emergency, whatever that might look like. The idea is that if one's not able to make it, then we still have someone else to step in and cover the gap. Same thing for the technical. Usually a technical committee does not meet apart from the policy board and vice versa. If that were to happen, which is technically is allowable, if you guys would like to meet separately, that would be up to the technical committee to chair and vice chair to implement that, get that organized and put together, work with MAPA staff to get all of that organized as far as meeting location, times, and agenda. All right. So we'll go and we'll do policy first. Charlie and Susan.
Nominations?
How are we feeling? Are you guys wanting to run again? Do you want to flip flop? Or are you like, nah, I'm good?
More years, I'll be fine.
And then anyone else who's considering running, please step forward as well. Like,
So
we want to make sure.
probably in Harrison County, he's retiring at the end of the year, so
He is. Okay. That's good to
I'll
know.
just have to make sure he always has a conflict with the juvenile detention, I think, so I'll try to make sure whoever the next policy board person is doesn't take that committee as well.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I haven't seen Tony in a while. We want to make sure we're getting appropriate representation.
Appropriate.
But you can only be one committee at a time, John. Sorry, you can't do everything.
All over here.
All right. Any nominations? You can also self-nominate. Charlie, are you self-nominating?
Charlie will do 2 more years. I'll do 2 more years. Voter willing.
All right, there we go.
Okay. Motion to elect Charlie as chair of the RPA-18 policy board and through June of 2027.
You made it.
Jervis?
Second.
Andy? All right. And then vice chair, motion to elect Susan Miller as vice chair of the RPA-18 policy board for the same amount of time.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second
And Andy. All right, technical. What are we looking at?
I'll stay in mine again if Jake will stay in his. That's fine with me.
Sounds good. Anyone else who wants to run?
Unless somebody else would really like to have it.
I'll make the motion for that.
See, I don't get to say no to that very often because it's usually where we're trying to get all the technical folks to not vote for policy, but we got switched around right now. All right. So I've got motion to elect Jacob Farrow as chair of the RPA-18 technical committee. And that's
Chris?
Chris and Andy.
Chris is making the motion or is Charlie making the motion? Because Charlie.
I made the motion.
Yeah, it has to come from the technical committee.
Okay, sorry,
I'll make the
Sorry.
motion.
overstep.
Andy can second or vice versa.
Perfect. All right, and then we've got motion to elect Chris as vice chair of the RPA-18 technical committee. Do I have a motion?
That motion.
Andy?
I can second myself, Kelly.
Yeah, we don't really have any rules against that, do we? All righty. Perfect. Well, I'm excited to keep serving with y'all. We need to vote. In the meantime,
We need to vote on all that?
I suppose we could quick. Yeah, we probably shouldn't.
yes. Do we? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, motion in a second for policy.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, technical committee.
You gotta have one for your chair, yeah.
Oh, for my chair.
Yeah.
Yes, we have 4 votes total for 4 officers.
Okay,
You did vice chair first. Policy.
okay.
Jervis and
We had a
Amy.
motion in a second for chair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All right. I've got motion Chris and Andy.
Okay, technical committee for chair.
We've already got the motion, so basically we're just saying.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side?
Opposed. Okay,
No opposed. Perfect. One
okay.
more.
All in favor of vice chair? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Alrighty.
Excuse me.
Lindsay, we have the RPA-13 CSAP plan on the agenda, a little bit out of order from my slides. So we're ready.
Yeah,
for it.
easy. So super quick, I know you guys had a lot of other stuff on the agenda today, so just letting everybody know that the 7 community RPA 13 and 18 comprehensive safety action plan the draft is complete for that. That can be found on the website at rpa-safestreets.mapacog.org. It's currently open for public comment. It opened on May 5th and will be open through May 31st. So if you visit that website, you'll also find a form to submit any kind of public comment you might want to submit on that draft plan. Upcoming, we will be finalizing the plan in June and July, and then we will be meeting one-on-one with each community to kind of go through process for formal adoption. So keep an eye out for meeting requests for those. And that's all I got for that one.
Perfect. Thanks, Lindsay. We've also got a copy of the plan here as well. It was on the back table. I think it's disappeared. So if you have it, share. But if you would like a copy of that, I can send that out to the committee. Looking at trying to make resources more available, especially those where we don't want to print like 5 trees worth of paper, and then people don't want to like really use it that much. So trying to be conscious of that while also being balanced with making sure you guys have resources available. And then go back to here. This is now a time where members of the public will be provided an opportunity to speak. Those in the back, any comments or good?
I'll just say thank you all for your consideration and support of our project. It's much appreciated.
We're excited to connect the dots from Council Bluffs to Weston and then to Underwood and Neola and beyond. And We'll be back.
All right. Okay. So this is a little bit of a new thing. We're going back as MAPPA staff and we're looking at who has access to TPMS currently. Part of this came about as a result of the mapping work that Zach had sent out as part of a TPMS kind of, they're switching around some software. And so we were like, okay, who even needs to do this? Like, who do we need to help work with to make sure that this happens from a project sponsor lens? And so we're going through and requested who kind of has access within our region. We noticed some of these communities, those folks have moved on. They're no longer at those organizations. Part of that means that they don't currently have access. Those communities do not have someone with a TPMS account, so they aren't able to see their projects or look at any of the publicly available projects that are even in their area or counties. Mostly, we've got all the green down here. This is mostly all of y'all. And then we've got a chunk at MAPPA that also have access within the region. If there are any additional people in your organization who you think should have access, whether that be to just look at it from an informational perspective, whether that might be, hey, I'm on vacation and for 2 weeks in August and we need to make sure this thing gets changed or adjusted, that someone else in your organization has access beyond just one person. If you are one of the communities that doesn't actually have any access right now, and you used to have access, which that's the red, the folks here in the red, they used to have access to TPMS and they don't have anyone who currently does. Please feel free. I'll probably reach out to, yeah, Jervis.
Can you scroll down for Harlan a little bit there?
Wait, up here?
No, on the bottom. I think I saw Harlan again.
Show
Yeah,
us the one, yeah, the ones that are
Not that one.
completed or acceptable.
Confirmed.
Confirmed, there we go.
Confirmed.
Sorry, what are we looking at?
City of Harlan, we're looking for a confirmed City of Harlan.
Yeah, that's the only one. Harlan does not currently have an account that I'm aware of, or according to the list.
One thing that said Harlan down
Yeah,
there, I
there's one
thought.
down there, say Harlan's.
There. Line 63.
Who's that?
Right. I don't include Joe simply because he's not actually at the city. He's a consultant, and I want to make sure that everyone, every community within house has someone who has access, even if they're not actually programming it.
Okay.
Our language.
So you need to be added. I need to be added.
So I need to update that one is what you're saying? Down at the bottom.
Oops. There we go.
Yeah, she's gone, so we need to, oh, that says confirmed under her. Oh, it's just the wrong name and the wrong. Okay.
Gotcha. So
that's our
this is
city
no
admin.
longer-
It's just not Nancy Godfrey.
gotcha. I'll flag that.
But the emails, the city admin, which we don't have one right now, so. Fill that in when we hire somebody.
Okay, and so you're just like in a waiting zone with that right now?
We have a deputy clerk if you want to put the,
Okay.
but I don't know what she knows.
Yeah, and ideally that would be someone who's maybe more like a street superintendent or, yeah, like Jamie.
So probably should
Sure
put
you have
Jamie on
access,
this. Is
actually.
he in there?
Did Perry Cook, did he used to have access to TPMS?
I don't know if he ever.
Jamie, you are not in here. I thought you had it.
We need to get Jamie then in there.
You're probably right, yeah.
And we can send out a note to Iowa DOT with kind of a list of folks that were like, hey, we want to
could
get
do
these
that.
guys, and then we can do that with, so Jamie. And you don't, and again, don't like feel like you have to go in there and start messing with things. Probably you won't be able to anyway. But we just want to give you guys access because those
Yeah.
are your projects. And if you guys can't figure out and see what's happening with them, that's not very, what's the word? Transparent.
You want me to ask a question? So like on Jacob, we have him listed under Pot County.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Now that Andy's here, should Andy be on there and remove Jacob?
So my only thing with that is historically, and I don't expect Andy to like check out or anything, but historically, when we do have an engineer leave, a lot of times it's a neighboring county engineer who will then fill in the gap while they're trying to find a new one. So my first recommendation would be to probably leave Jacob with access, one, because he's got his own account anyway, independent of access to Pottawattamie. And then if he needs to get called in again for some reason, things happen, you know, life, then we don't have to go back through the whole process of getting him access to Pot County again. But if that's not
But you, it's,
what you guys want to do, we can adjust that.
if you're not on there.
Andy's on there.
Oh, he is on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the question is now.
Are you pulling this
Just a
from
double.
TPMS or are you?
So
Yeah,
you-
Andy.
it's not, I'm not pulling it directly from TPMS. We went and requested a list of everyone within our region who has access from the Bureau themselves. So they went through and put together a list of everyone who has access right now.
So I think in the last 2 weeks, we asked for Jake to be taken off podcast.
Okay, you did that. Okay. Good to know.
Mills County has terminated both contracts, and so has Pot County, as far as him helping any longer.
Gotcha. Is there, and there's not enough reason, enough support to consider maintaining that. Okay. Take Jacob. Any other edits or folks that we want to have access? With this,
Richard,
you
is-
guys can think about it and reach back out to
Says-
us too.
Do you know, does Kevin Mayberry still have access to TPMS?
I couldn't tell you, he works as an assistant there at the engineer's office, but I don't think he doesn't care to travel or go to any other counties.
I just know that one time he had access to TPMS when he was the county
Right.
engineer. Now that he's assistant, I didn't know if he had an account as well.
Not that I'm aware of.
Kicking the shit fast.
Yeah, right. Sure.
And like, it's not any more work to put in a larger request with more people than it is to put in just like a couple people. So not that we want to give everyone access, right? But we want to make sure, like I was saying before, that your communities have enough touch points with that you're not going to be at risk of completely losing access when folks start leaving and whatnot. And obviously for most of these communities, unless you have a project programmed within the TIP or the SIP, there's probably not a whole lot of reason. Some of these, I think it would be wise to have, especially like, for example, like the conservation boards, trails boards, especially just because we tend to administer a lot of those kinds of trails projects because they tend to be strong on the regionally significance part of our work.
Was there a Mills County Trail Board? Did you happen to see one? Do they have one set up?
We do, yes, I am.
The
part
name
of-
on that.
within TPMS right now. I don't think they have access right now. I'm active with that group.
Is there some basic information that could be sent out to all of these communities to create awareness for this system? Because I know a lot of the small towns have a lot of city clerks recently that have turned over. And there's just, they don't know what they don't know.
Right,
You only need access to the project because it's for program
yeah.
projects. I think I would probably just have them as.
For cities, I think it might be less of a big deal, especially for like, some of these are very small communities, like just a couple hundred people. If you're starting to hit like the 1,000 mark, I'd say that's probably a point at which you're more likely to get a project. Like, for example, we currently have Logan and Harlan with projects that are currently finalizing. Glenwood, obviously, Missouri Valley, obviously, those three should always have access. And then anyone who's kind of within that middle zone might need it. It just depends on whether they have a project programmed and whether they might be looking at having a project program, that kind of situation.
Okay, there again, it goes back to MAPA educating the communities as needed.
I'm sorry?
But MAPPA is providing the education to the communities as needed.
Yes, we did reach out initially, because we were curious about providing training for, engineers who were just like starting, like we had Andy at the time. John had just switched over to Harrison County. There was, some movement happening. We'd had, Brandon and Dave also in that mix for a bit. So we were just at a point where we wanted to make sure, because we just didn't know what people knew anymore. And those were the people where it really matters and can really make a difference when it comes to project development. And from that, we kind of got to a point where we were like, hey, what's the next step to that? Now that we've kind of solved this immediate access issue, what does that look like going forward? And so we're going to incorporate this into our like an annual type of review thing where we go in once a year and we're like, okay, everyone, this is the table of everyone who currently has access. Does anyone else need to be on this list? And making those arrangements as needed. And of course, if you know someone anytime throughout the year, regardless of whether it's been right after the review, please just reach out to me, anyone at MAPPA, and we'll get in touch with the Bureau folks and get that requested. All right, so currently I have adding Jamie and removing Jacob from anything non-mill county. Any others that you would like me to add or remove at this time? Okay, that sounds good. Go back over here. One last thing, I did initially schedule today's meeting to go 30 minutes later just because I knew we had a longer agenda. If you do have to run though, because I know we don't normally have 1.5-hour meetings, feel free. I'm just gonna go over this last funding opportunity real quick, and then we'll call it a day. So this is an annual state grant. It's state recreational trails. There is a federal side of that, but they haven't opened a call for projects this round. It's eligible for any of the governmental agencies, municipal corporations. That includes, the counties and nonprofit organizations as well. Its primary purpose is for the establishment of those recreational trails, especially those that might be strong in the regionally significant area. Eligible projects goes through acquisition, construction to develop and implement those projects. And currently, I don't know, I can't, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I don't believe this has gone through the official appropriation yet. Last I heard we were waiting, but we're looking at 2.5 million currently, and that's 75-25 split costs. So 75% of the project would be covered and you'd be responsible for 25% local match. And that's due July 1st. That's an annual thing. Quick note on that. If you have submitted before and you're a last minute submitter, it used to be at 5 o'clock. For this round, it's 4 o'clock. So just make a note of that. If you are planning to put an application in, that you don't think it's open till 5 and you miss the deadline. And then those expected award dates are in October. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. We'll get in touch with Scott and we can kind of have some of those conversations about what you think that might look like going forward. And there's also the NOFO available on iowdot.gov, which has a lot more information about what application looks like and what kind of projects are allowed. Go ahead, Carlos.
Great. Just a quick question for Scott Sewer. If I'm recalling correctly, the state SRT can be used for local match on trail projects as well. Is that correct?
Yes, you can match state funds with federal funds.
And that is actually currently in play with one of the pot conservation projects.
So if there's a trail project that needs additional local funds, this would be a way to bridge some of that gap. So for example, the city of Glenwood could look at this with a TASA project and combine these two into one single application.
That's my understanding.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, one thing to keep in note is that this one still also has local match. And so you would still have to be, even if you got both grant awards, you would still have to pull some money in to fill that 25%.
And the 20.
Yeah. Well, but if you use the SRT for the 20,
You're
but
right.
you'd still have to have whatever the 25 for the SRT would be. Because you can't use, you couldn't use TAP, for example. Like if you got a TAP award and an SRT award, you can't use TAP as local match for SRT, but you can use SRT as local match for TAP. So it's kind of a one-way street there. Essentially the idea is because TAP is considered federal funding, like we're getting it from the federal government. It's subject to all of those rules as far as federally received money, whereas the SRT is not because it's from the state specifically. And that's not to be confused with the federal recreational trails because that's a whole other thing. But yeah. There are other programs, and for example, if you have county funds, I know some communities that are looking at their county funds to fit that local match and then apply for the main part of the program directly too. And then they kind of get both of them covered with all funding without having to go too deep into local pockets. So that's one of the grant opportunities. Like I said, we always try to go over one of these. Should be some really interesting opportunities going through where MAPA is putting through a couple different, we're assisting in putting through a couple different safe streets for all grant opportunities. One's for EMS whole blood for the metro area. Jim Borner is leading that effort. And then Andy, I know, is also working on some demonstration type funding application that he's going to be putting in. And that's Old Lincoln Highway, correct? And so we're hoping that both of those can get funded. And then we've had a lot of interest on the RPA side, on the EMS. One thing that we heard from you guys, Harlan and Glenwood specifically, was that you guys don't have access to a lot of the equipment that you need. I remember in Harlan, they were saying that they were going to need $1 million in new EMS equipment here in like the next 3 years or something like that. And so part of that is making sure that they have access to life-saving equipment. One of the big programs right now that people are talking a lot about is the whole blood access. I know Iowa already has a pilot program out for that, that I know some of the communities are involved in already. But if that's something you guys are interested in, we're kind of testing it out in the MPO right now. And then our staff, once we've kind of seen how that works out and whether that seems to be like it's working pretty well, might look at seeing how we can support something like that in our rural communities on the RPA side. So that's something to keep in mind. It'll probably be until next year before that grant opportunity opens again. But just kind of a heads up, this is what we're kind of considering ahead of time. All right, and then announcements. So we've got Council of Officials. That's at June 10th, 2026 at Papillion Landing Community Center. That's always a good time. The theme of this one is safety. So you're going to hear a lot from me and Lindsay and Jim kind of about a lot of the safety work that we're doing within the region. Again, you're going to hear some of that EMS work. Lindsay's also heading up some e-moto policy works where basically it's basically like motorcycles that are being treated like bikes, and we're trying to make sure that kiddos that are riding those are appropriately licensed, wearing helmets, all the things that should be a part of driving a vehicle of that caliber. So that's some of the topics we'll be going over at that meeting. Finally, we've got our next meeting July 8th at 11 a.m. So mark your calendars. Someone can punch Jacob on the shoulder a little bit. We've got the final tip that we're going to be approving there. So we will, of course, need quorum. And yes, so if you have 4th of July plans, no, you don't. You're going to be here. Just kidding. Go on vacation. We'll be okay. But also, there's a Zoom, so no excuses. Anyways, all right. I think we're good to wrap up. Any final comments or questions? No? Just once? Yes.
With changes that are coming from the state level, the 2% cap, property taxes and stuff like that. Sorry, can't hear you. With the changes that coming from the state level, with property tax, put a 2% cap and stuff. Are you guys put any consideration on those matching funds and reduce the percentage because it's going to be constraint of availability of funds?
Yeah, so with the RPA funding, we can't do anything about that because it's federal funding, we don't control any of the ratios. It's kind of required for it to be an 80-20 split. Unfortunately, there are some grant opportunities specifically for rural communities that are 100% covered, but they're very competitive. They don't open very often. So that's another situation where it's like, if you have a project and you know what you want, then those are the kind of things that you want to apply for. Then you don't have to worry about the local match, and I can.
Yeah, and Rachel, just a quick chime in. The House Committee just introduced their Build 25 or Build 250 Act. This would replace the federal legislation. We're still sifting through that. That just came out the other day, and so there's still a lot of work. But again, some of the changes would include additional SCDG apportionments. Majority of the things would stay the same. The carbon reduction would go away and get absorbed into SDBG. On the MPO level, I think they were talking about an increase in availability of funds for MPOs. Didn't really talk a lot about regional planning organizations. So a lot more details to come, but right now, that is one of the things. Our current IIJA is set to expire this fall. Unless there's a continuing resolution, we would remain with the same funding structure and funding tables for one more year. Unless there's a new bill that has enough support on both sides to pass and become the new transportation bill, in which case we're going to be revisiting a lot of these tables and formulas and things. So exciting times.
Yeah, all of that tables that we looked at, it's highly likely we might have to go through in the fall and kind of take a look at revamping a lot of that. So we'll see how that turns out. But there's nothing else.
Just a question, and maybe one of the other engineers knows, but I think July the 8th is the mid-year in Ames.
I don't remember.
Pretty sure that's.
Grace, would you double check that date and then let me know if there's a conflict? We might be able to push out a week if we need to.
I don't have anything. I could be wrong.
July.
I know it was right after the 4th, and I'm sure it's the 8th because we're having CPR the 8th, and I had to go to the 9th. But I'll check.
Gotcha.
Okay, any further comments?
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oh, same sign. Motion carried.
Okay, everybody.
Make sure if you see Reed.
See you in July, maybe.
Hopefully.
The state submit.
You'll know if you, oh, you'll know.
All right. Thanks everyone online. See you later.
Better give her this one too. Take that many for this.
Okay.